Hey everybody, welcome to the LWN Network. I'm Tammy Nation here hosting tonight. We are going to cover President Donald J. Trump's address to the nation after we have just been notified that we had strikes on Iran's 3 nuclear sites. He put out a statement. He is going to address the nation, and I was lucky enough to be able to be here and be able to go live for you guys so we can follow that and cover that. Thank you guys for being here with me. I really didn't have that much time to give you advance notice because, as we know, this is just breaking. Jeff B., thanks for being in the chat there. He's been keeping LW and myself updated on everything going on, and it's pretty incredible. So I'm going to just read through the statement while we waiting. Good, Kathy H., good deal. I'm going to read through the statement that President Trump did put out to get everybody up to date as we await him to go ahead and take to the Oval Office and give his address to the nation. So this is what President Donald J. Trump put out. He said, "We have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of the Iran airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordow. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter." Donald J. Trump did also put out there, I'm going to see if I can pull it up here and share it with you guys. It is a picture of that Fordow site, and Trump did put out 13 minutes ago, Fordow is gone. So let me share the screen and show you guys what it looks like now. It is this one here, share. So you guys can see that, I hope. I'm going to scroll down here a little bit more. That is what is left of the nuclear site in Fordow. Trump posted just 13 minutes ago that Fordow is gone. It's completely wiped out. So many people are not... Okay, Jeff B., after Trump speaks, I'll come on and share what we have received from the FBI and NSC. Awesome. Thank you, Jeff B. So basically, it is totally wiped out now. And a lot of people are very upset. Some are in agreement with Trump. Some are upset with Trump, saying that we don't want to go to war, blah, 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 on and off. I understand that. But that's not what we're doing. If you guys remember, Trump gave Iran 60 days to negotiate, talk, and settle down. He said there's no way that Iran is going to be able to have nuclear facilities. He was serious about it. On 61 days, they said, oh, maybe we'll want to negotiate. He said it's too late. So what is going on is a strategic mission to wipe out the 3 nuke sites. That's what it is. Now, Trump has said after these nuke sites are wiped out, he did post, now is the time for peace. So the reality is, when Trump said you have 60 days, he meant it. He took out nuke sites, and now he stopped. And, you know, everybody has an opinion on what may take place now. But I really believe that Donald J. Trump is willing to negotiate now. He got the nuke facilities out of the way. He's getting the intel, and he's going to tell us in this statement, this address to the nation, that they are wiped out, that the mission was accomplished. Nobody was injured as far as on our side. Everybody's coming safely home. And now he wants to negotiate because that is what he said all along. Now, are we holding our breath because Iran could retaliate? Absolutely. But the reality is, if they want to negotiate now, they can negotiate. Trump is willing to do that. Also, I do believe that should Iran retaliate, I don't know that our people will do that. I believe that Trump will allow Israel to continue doing what they've been doing because he doesn't want our people involved in battle to battle like that. Taking out the nuke sites was always his goal. That's apparently what they did. Now, these 3 nuke sites were in Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. It's hard to pronounce some of these names, but he does want to go back to the negotiation table. He said now's the time for peace, and it's true. This is what I voted for. I voted for our great president to stand up for this great country. I voted for him not to bend over and take it from people anymore. And even though nobody wants war, none of us want war, some people are upset about it. The nuke sites it's true. Do you want Iran having nuke sites? Remember, not long ago, we didn't think that they had them, that supposedly they stopped in 2005 or something like that, and there were no nuke sites. They weren't continuing, but they were doing it behind the scenes, because remember, I reported on Headline Hits on the LWN network that there were 10 sites that we didn't know about that they were producing nuclear weapons. So it's me too. I know, Rhonda, right? So thank you again, everyone who's joining us. If you can like and share this, that would be amazing. LW is off doing something else. He's not available. Like I said, I wasn't going, I didn't know if I was going to go on or not, but I happened to just get home. I cut a party that I was having short because I thought this was important to be able to get on here and share this with you guys. You know, this is a big deal. This move was a big deal. And what the president has to say is going to be a big deal. So I'm thankful that I'm able to share it with you guys and be able to go on the air. I'm going to read you through some things that Jeff B. had sent LW and I through this afternoon and evening to further cover what is and has been going on behind. Oh, wait, Trump's here, so we have to go to Trump. I got to share this. Hang on.
Isfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Raisin-Kane, spectacular general, and all of the brilliant military minds involved in this attack. With all of that being said, this cannot continue. There will be either peace or there will be tragedy for Iran far greater than we have witnessed over the last 8 days. Remember, there are many targets left. Tonight's was the most difficult of them all, by far, and perhaps the most lethal. But if peace does not come quickly, we will go after those other targets with precision, speed, and skill. Most of them can be taken out in a matter of minutes. There's no military in the world that could have done what we did tonight, not even close. There has never been a military that could do what took place just a little while ago. Tomorrow, General Kane, Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth will have a press conference at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon. And I want to just thank everybody, and in particular, God. I want to just say we love you, God, and we love our great military. Protect them. God bless the Middle East. God bless Israel, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow. That was short, sweet, and to the point. Ooh wee. So he's determined. He's not messing around. That is incredible. Hang on one sec. There. That was short, sweet. That's not typical of Trump to do short and sweet. You can tell that he has a lot on his mind, that he wants to grit peace. That's what he's been talking about, was peace all along. And he means business. And I'm very proud of our president. Like I said, nobody wants war. Nobody wants that. But people haven't been wanting to negotiate. We look at what's been going on with Russia and Ukraine, with Zelensky of Ukraine, how he kept flim-flamming back and forth. And now, I don't know if you guys saw this, but he wants us to give him $40 billion annually to sustain Ukraine. That just came out. I think I reposted that on my Facebook page. It is absolutely nuts and crazy. The things that we have been putting up with, the things that we have been doing to sell our citizens short, to fund all these other people in these other countries, and it's time to stop. So I think it's been amazing. I think that President Trump has done a wonderful job. The man has been putting us first. We know that he loves the military. We know that he loves the people, and he just doesn't stop. So there's been a lot going on outside of this as well. I'm going to cover, yes, I did drop the link to Jeff B. I sent him it in his personal stuff, Kathy H. Thanks for reminding me. So he'll get here when he can, I believe. I can see him if he shows up on the bottom here. But he does love this country. He loves God. And, you know, you stop and think about what this man has dealt with all these years. Over the years, and we see everything that has been coming out all about 2020. You know, that's another thing that's been breaking, you guys, all the information that has been passed over to the people that need to do that as well. It's just been incredible. He is my president as well. Now, you can imagine what this country, the shape that we would be in if it was Biden or Kamala in charge at this time. What shape would we be in right now, you guys? It would be terrifying. War is scary. Nobody wants to obviously sacrifice their children, their husbands, their wives. And the reality is, I do believe that President Trump is going to do the best he can for us not to be involved on the ground with our people. Like I said, I do believe that he's going to let Israel continue what they are doing. He just did this because he's like, that's what I want, is no nukes. No nukes, because that has been it all along. They've been a very volatile country all along. And they just aren't allowed to have nukes. And I think that's why he went in. So I'm going to go ahead and read through some of the stuff that Jeff B., some of the details that he gave me this evening. And he's actually here, so I'm going to bring him on board. Hey, Jeff B. You there?
1 second. Yep,
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for joining us, Jeff B.
Yeah, so go ahead.
Go. I was going to say, can you believe that was really short and sweet, wasn't it?
Yeah, so, I'm sure they definitely got a lot on their plate, but,
Oh, you're going to have to start over because I think you went out. Are you there?
yeah, I'm here.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah, let me, so what, the FBI now, they put out alerts for, New York City, and for LA. And so I'm guessing with some of the documents that are being pushed out to, the FBI and, through the NSC, that they're expecting within 12 to 72 hours that Iran's going to hit bases within Iraq, Jordan, Dubai, Kuwait, and Saudi Arabia, are bases.
Oh, dear God.
And there are reports of movements to close down the Straits of Hormuz. The Iranians are going to try to close it down. And the maritime, I forget what exactly it's called, but they are telling all cargo vessels to leave the Persian Gulf region. because
Wow.
they're worried about oil tankers and that being attacked.
Oh, wow. So I really think that that's the whole thing. We're on pause waiting to see how Iran responds to this, and we're trying to prepare, obviously, for that response that they're going to have. But I mentioned this in our chat that I was concerned that we have sleeper cells here, and I saw many people today talking about, special agents and FBI and government officials that said there are sleeper agents here. So that is the new way of terrorism, that these sleeper agents could be activated at any time. So what do you think? Do you agree with that? It's a possibility here?
Well, yeah, you remember, I believe it was last year, uh, the guy from the Middle East that came across the border, and one of the TV crews had interviewed him, and they asked him where he was from, and he said, "Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough." And
Oh,
that
no.
was through the southern border. So, I mean, probably, I'm guessing within the next probably 12 to 24 hours, we'll start seeing a lot of shakiness throughout the Middle East. And now, what I expect to happen, you may see China do a move on to Taiwan. Uh, so it's Russia's probably going to demand tomorrow morning a UN Security Council meeting. So that'll probably kick off first thing tomorrow morning.
Wow.
And yeah, it's going to get dicey.
And it's going to be busy, because Trump said that they're going to have a meeting at 8 a.m. at the Pentagon, or an announcement at the Pentagon. What do you think
Right.
that's going to be about?
Probably they're basically going to tell everybody what ordinances that they've used. Now, from what I've been told, probably over the last, I don't know, hour to an hour and a half, that they did surface and subsurface TLAM, which are Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles from the Persian Gulf and from the Adriatic.
Wow.
So, a TLAM can go roughly 400 miles. So that's probably, they use those to take out the air defenses, air radar. And then there's supposedly, I believe it was 8 GBUs that were used, and those are the big boys that they major or earth penetrators that they dropped in. And I'm waiting on some footage that where they launched 8 cruise missiles into the ventilation ducts at Fort Owl,
Wow.
which was their big underground facility.
Did you see that picture that I posted that was on Gateway Pundit that Trump said it's gone? It's just obliterated. There's nothing
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, and there's speculation. There was some type of tactical nuke used. I don't think they probably used that, because those GBUs will, I mean, they can flatten a 2 or 3 square city blocks.
Wow. Wow.
So
That's the thing. I don't, not realizing how big some of this stuff is. And, when Trump said that, nobody could have done what the U.S. done, because aren't we the only ones that can carry some of those bombers? We're the only ones that have the planes that have the capabilities to do that. And that's why we did it, because Trump wanted the nuke plants out. And
Right.
that was that one plane, whatever it's called, is the only one that can carry what can carry to take them out.
yeah, these missiles or bombs, however you want to look at them, I believe they're roughly 25 feet long. So they're
Oh my
huge.
gosh.
And
Unbelievable.
last night, all the reports were coming. I know I was sending you and Mike all the reports of the strato tankers and that heading over to Guam.
Yeah.
And I had an inclination that was going to be a diversionary tactic, basically just to move they're probably either on their way to Guam or it was just a tactic. I'm guessing they're probably going to Guam, uh, in case, because the Pacific Theater, they put out an SIMPAC fleet, which is the commander in chief of Pacific Forces, put out an alert through JSOC for the whole Pacific Rim to basically be on high alert for retaliation.
Well, that's the thing, holding breath now to see how they're going to retaliate, where and who and how. But it, like you said, opens up the gate for Russia as well, and China and everything else. It kind of opened the floodgates, I think, because of, this happening. Now, you did text me and say that the U.S. bases in West Asia also are put in high alert. Conservative Cowboy in chat says all American bases in the areas of the Middle East are evacuated. But I don't know that are in West Asia, they're evacuated yet, are they?
No, what they do is they have threat con levels, which is like threat conditions. So, like in Hawaii, at the SEGRU where I work, they'd have it posted, threat level Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta. So all of those have been raised to the highest level. And so, in terms of Navy, what that means is it's 100% ID check, 100% vehicle check. All shore patrol have long guns, so they take it, pretty serious.
Well, do you find it interesting that President Trump, it was short and sweet. Obviously, he's busy, but he didn't put out a warning for us to be cautious or anything about us. He basically stated what was accomplished, and that's it. Now he's going to have that tomorrow at 8 a.m. from the Pentagon. Maybe that'll have more information, but he really didn't add to us. I mean, he put it out there. Yeah. This is what we did. It's a done deal. Why do you think that was?
Well, I think what he'll probably do is he'll let Homeland Security and Kash Patel come out, or Dan Bongino come out and do internal threat warnings for the United States. And then, it's going to be, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I told you and Mike that this had to have been in planning for quite a while because, our local sheriff's office, and I thought it was going to be for, protests and stuff, but they received military MRAMs and stuff like that. So, there's going to be unrest within, the Arab communities within the United States over this. So,
well, I think that it's a big deal that Pakistan, that Trump made a deal with Pakistan and peace with Pakistan and has them on our side, don't you think? I mean, it's better than not, right? So that's at least one down. And I know Saudi Arabia has been looking at what's going on and very cautious and nervous about what's going on, but we know that the prince or whatever is on our side as well. But I mean, I wonder how many people can be drug into this, where it's literally like World War III. People are talking now that we are at war, that the people are at war, and it's World War III. I don't know that it's that far yet. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I believe that depends on... right now, I mean, I think this is a one and done. But I also believe that if the mullahs, the Ayatollah, come out, in which waiting for statements out of the IRGC, which they already put out a statement that they're going to close down the Straits of Hormuz.
Right.
There's plenty of targets that they can take, but the key thing right now is just I believe they're just going to let the dust settle, see what happens. I'm sure all the the field sites for regional sites of collection throughout the world are busy. NSA's busy trying to pick up chatter to see if anything is, if cells are going to be activated.
the Ayatollah has been very quiet, and I'm sure he's down there needing to do what he has to do. Oh, he dumped out. He'll probably have to come back in. But the Ayatollah has been very quiet. Now, there was talk that everybody was like, take the Ayatollah out, take him out. But the reality is, and there was some opinions that if we take the Ayatollah out, there will be civil unrest in that country. It will be chaos and craziness. That it is better to... Let's bring Jeff back.
Oh,
You
there
back?
you go.
There
Yep,
you go.
yep.
So I'll start over. So the Ayatollah has been very quiet. And some people were saying that we should take the Ayatollah out, get him out. But the reality is other people were saying that if we took him out, there'd be utter chaos and civil unrest in that whole country. It would be chaotic as heck. And that's why they're not doing it. They want him to stay in control to be able to have peace, right? And to negotiate with him. So I agree with that fact, because at first I thought, wipe them all out. And I've been telling UNLW, wipe them all out. All these leaders, all these military. But it's true, I never thought about that, because then there would be civil unrest in that country,
Right.
because everybody be fighting for power, right?
Well, yeah, and I'm sure that, we have people within Special Activities Division. We have CIA. They're going. The thing is, if you've never been to the Middle East or interacted with they don't have a problem with the American people. They have a problem with the government, and a lot of that stems from the unilateral support of whatever Israel does. Now, I think probably you may, see a coup within Iran to get rid of the Khomeinis and the mullahs. But it's that whole region right now is just going to be a mess.
Right.
And
Right.
I look for Hezbollah, El Shaddai, any of those groups now to start. They're going to hit Israel. That's just the way the cookie crumbles with that. And Iraq's probably going to, all of our bases within Iraq, Afghanistan, if there's any still left in, I'm sure there is, in Afghanistan, will be targets.
Well, I've been wondering, why has Iraq been so quiet? We haven't heard that name until you brought it up just now. I haven't heard anything about their opinion, what they're doing. Are they just staying quiet to themselves to see what happens, and then, they'll take action eventually? Or are they just going to stay out of it and wait and see? I mean, what do you think?
Well, I think they're in kind of like the same position as Saudi Arabia is. Saudi Arabia has an internal issue with the different types of Muslims that they have. They have the Shiites. So the king has to walk a very fine balance to keep his people internally, quiet. And the same with, within Iraq. There's factions within Iraq that, hate each other.
Yeah.
But, I think all these over the last 3 or 4 months, that we've seen all these cargo planes flying into like Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain. We're probably sending in defense systems because, they knew that this was going to be a possibility, and we got to do our part to protect our allies in the Middle East.
Yeah. Well, Conservative Cowboy put up here that base and embassy in Iraq and Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel are evacuated. So that being true, I mean, obviously they all had the heads up if they're already evacuated with this going on. I mean, it doesn't take, the brain surgery, is that the word? That,
Right.
To understand that, you should get the people the heck out of there. And I mean, even Trump was warning people to get the heck out. And, it's just crazy. And then somebody put in here, Diane, I think it was, said, watch out for Dearborn, Michigan. Well, I used to work in Dearborn, Michigan, right on Michigan Avenue, and it is very heavily populated by the Arabs, definitely. And
Right.
I agree with that. It is inundated because I traveled around there, went to lunch around there, the parks around there, everything was inundated with them. And I mean, a lot of them were nice, they were friendly, but the reality is it is inundated and packed there. So if you have these cells of people that don't want to cause harm, that is definitely one place that we need to watch out for and be careful around. I mean, I have many friends that still live in that Dearborn area, and that has been a big concern for me as well. Like I said, there's a lot of nice ones. They're very pleasant, but that's where they're going to hide, right amongst each other. It's not like they're going to come to a place where it's all, people like us and stand out. They're going to try to blend in. So that is a big concern with Michigan, but I don't think it's just Michigan. I think it's all
No.
over.
Right. Well, and these Islamic terrorists, they play the long game. Just all you have to do is look at bin Laden. I mean, look how long,
God, yeah.
bin Laden from, the USS Cole to the first tower bombings to, 9/11 and all the other skirmishes that were happening, in Mumbai that really didn't hit the news, but were affiliated with Al Qaeda. They play the long game. There could be people that have been here since 9/11, just waiting on, some speech or some activation to do what they need to do. And with, the last 4 years of these borders being open,
Ugh, yeah.
you really don't know who's here.
And that's true. And you bring up that point, which is a valid point, and it's terrifying. And it's something I don't think that we think about, that when people play the long game, the long run, that's why they keep recruiting these young boys and force them to be in these radical groups, and they train them up. So they have generations and generations of people just to be able to wait it out. And that to me is terrifying. And like I said, Jeff, a very, very valid point that, when you think about this, you think, oh, Trump, just go ahead and knock them all out, get this over with quick. But there's way more to it than that. And when we are trying to protect our own people in our own country, and yet we've had the borders open for 4 long years, and the millions of people that have been in, now the ICE has been, obviously you've seen as well, arresting a lot of people. They've been criminals, drug dealers, child sex traffickers, and on. But we haven't heard any about terrorists, have we?
No. And and in this situation that happened this evening, I told yourself and Mike 3 or 4 days ago, no matter what decision the White House makes, Trump's going to be damned if he does and damned if he doesn't. You can see all the people that were, not so much for Trump. I mean, you even have Democrats now calling for his impeachment because, because he didn't go to Congress. Well, he has, I believe, under the War Powers Act, he has 60 days to do a formal declaration. And he says, this was a one and done. Get your house in order. So,
yeah. Well, and aren't we tired of that? Aren't we tired of the divisions and the divisiveness that is going on in this country? If you can't back a president who's trying to protect us, what is wrong with you? And we've been saying about these protests that have been going on, where these people from these other countries are waving flags from the very countries they fled from and burning ours, is absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. It is hypocritical. It's an oxymoron. It makes no sense at all. And this is not the nation that the United States of America is at all. We never really had all of that until the summer of 2020. I don't recall. I mean, the riots of '64 were a deal, but I mean, that I was just getting born around then. But I'm saying I don't recall all this chaos and all this hate for America, yet you're here, living here. You're getting all these freebies. You're getting social security cards, you're getting credit cards, you're getting places to live, and you still hate the very country that's doing that for you. Something's seriously wrong with that. And why people wouldn't want those people out, I don't understand that. It is way beyond just President Donald J. Trump. It's about these other people that are for them, just hate America as well. I mean, I say just go ahead and be free. Go where you want to go. Wave those flags in the other countries that you're waving them from instead of the United States. But I'm very concerned because, we have to leave this world in a better shape for our kids and our nieces, our nephews, whatever it is, the younger generations, Jeff. And, right now, this has to be terrifying for them because they've lived through COVID and all the chaos from that, trying to find jobs and now war, told that tariffs are bad, that Trump is bad. And it's just, it's mind-boggling for adults like us to comprehend. The younger generations, I just feel horrible for.
Well, yeah, a lot of this was all institutional based. All your colleges, they, teach this nonsense, all of this. And I don't want to say every college, but, the whole hate America, I agree with their right to say it. I serve for your right to say it, but I also, if you don't like this country, there are others you can go to, and guess what? Last week there was somebody from the LGBTQ community that went to Gaza, and they found out real quick that you just don't go over there and get to say whatever the hell you want.
Right. And like you do here. Exactly.
Right.
John H. is saying in here, hey, John H., good to have you here. He said that we are past the second box, only one box left. What does that mean?
I think that, the Save Israel for Last might be what he's referring to. Mm-hmm. There, whatever people think about that letter in the alphabet, and I know you have skeptics. There are things that I do know with one of the groups that I worked with at Kenia. It was so compartmentalized, nobody knew what really everything looked foreign because no certain cell had all the information, and they just call that compartmentalization. But there's a lot of stuff in that seemed to be coming true.
I know. Jeff.
And, when they talk about, and I sent this to you and Mike, about the alien invasion. Remember that? And I said, look, and people thought I was crazy about the alien invasion, but I don't think the alien invasion is what they put it out as. I think the alien invasion is the introduction of AI. Alien invasion.
And I think I agree with that. And I think we got, or the truthers or the people out there from the days past got a lot of things wrong. I think that...
Oh, absolutely.
That we're not going to get everything right, because if we got everything right, the enemy would get everything right. And before we go down that AI road, John H. said there are 3 boxes: the ballot box, the jury box, and the ammunition box. The first 2 have failed.
Yeah. Well, I find it interesting now that 2020 is back on the playing field.
Don't you?
I mean,
don't you?
What? So, is the crux of that going to be the auto pen? That whole group is completely quiet. You don't hear nothing out of Nancy Pelosi. None of these people. You got this issue with Tim Walz.
Oh, gosh.
And I remember having a conversation with Mike when she first picked him, and I told him, I said, no one knows who this guy is. There is something else to this.
Right.
A lot of course, you could say that about J.D. Vance, but, I personally thought it was going to be Mike Flynn who he selected because Trump come out and told him, make sure you stay healthy. Now,
Right.
I mean, to me, that was a dead giveaway. Oh, you're about ready to tap this guy for VP. But I think there's something else coming down the pike that we're going to see Flynn popping up.
Well, this is speaking of Flynn and what is his position. Now, you know that I'm a big Steve Bannon fan. I met Steve Bannon. I love Steve Bannon. Mike, he's kind of on the fence with him.
Right.
However, he's been laying low away from Trump, right? So
Correct.
he's been talking about Trump, and he's like, we got to get this taken care of. Like, Cash, what are you guys doing? We need arrest, blah, blah, blah. He's been preaching the same thing we all, like, let's go. Come on, we only have a certain
Right.
amount of time. Well, then the next thing out of nowhere, he goes and he has lunch with Trump at the
Yep.
Oval Office on Thursday. And he slides in there, and then people are saying, look at Bannon, he's back with Trump. Is he influencing Trump? And Bannon comes on his show, and he's like, oh, and he laughed at it. He laughed at the press and how they were making fun of it. And I thought,
Right.
oh my gosh, then he did the special show tonight that I put in our chat to let you and LW know about, because I'm like, this is weird. All of a sudden, Bannon, and what did you say to me about Bannon?
Yeah, look at Bannon's background. Bannon was a line officer in the crypto community. I mean, when I worked at KRSOC and NSA, that's what I did, was cryptology.
Wow.
Yeah, and then when it branched out into Classic Owl and some other programs, he was a line officer for the crypto community. So there's something with Bannon. I don't know
What it is.
Yeah, the big chair knows, because he's all involved in that craziness now.
Oh, yeah.
But when I was sending him some stuff earlier, because he knew there was going to be something, and him and I, through conversation, thought it was going to be on the 25th of this month. And the only reason we thought it was going to be on the 25th is because in the Middle East, that's going to be the new moon, and the Navy loves to strike on the new moon because of spatial nonsense, that lower interference for the Aegis system and all this other. So we thought it was going to be on the night of the 25th in Iran was when they were going to hit. So
Okay. So see as much details as you guys have, and him being the big chair, it's still
Right.
days off. So that's why I say, when you have these other so-called truthers out there, you can't put all your eggs in their basket, because Jeff B and the big chair are right in and right no, and these other people, even if they have people in there, they're still been wrong. So you can't do that, because in reality, if anybody knows anything 100%, that means they have the opportunity to give it to the bad people, to share that with them and sell it out, like we've seen. That's been obviously going on. These secrets, the FBI Cash has been coming out saying all these different people have been giving away secrets, buying and selling secrets, U.S. secrets that are in our government. It's just so disgusting. Diane says, on Dan Scavino post on Truth Social a few weeks back, was Mike Flynn in a glass box and President T holding a hammer behind his back. Yeah, Diane, we did put that up. Jeff B was on the show with LW and I, and we put that up there. So I do believe Flynn, because remember, Jeff B. Flynn also, he was great and everybody loved him, and then
Right.
all of a sudden they said no, after what he went through, and everybody said no, he's a traitor, he's a fake. He went off and he did all this other stuff with other truthers and
Right.
lost his credibility. Well, the next thing you know, he's back in the Oval Office and with Trump at these different rallies, and Trump's. I'm like, what is going on? So there is a lot we don't know that is going on. I think the bottom line is, do we have faith in our president and his administration to keep us safe and do the best that they can do for we the people? And I do have faith in that, and I believe in that. Not always going to agree with everybody. Yep,
Right.
Some of them have a bad background, some of them, but people can change and people can grow. I'm still not thrilled, I don't know about you, with Dan Bongino and Kash Patel because of Epstein's files and everything else. And I know we talked about that, saying, well, it's going to tumble everything down. Maybe it's not time. But it is still it is still, Cash and Dan both know we don't trust our government.
Right.
So, can't they give us a little something?
Well, I think with that list, uh, that very well could be what possibly takes down the Israeli government. Not the Israeli people, but the Israeli government, because it's been rumored for years that, he was involved with Mossad. Now, as much of an ally as Israel is one, if not one of the only allies that attacked one of our Navy vessels, the USS Liberty. It was a spy ship. And so, there's a lot of, we do a lot of Israel's bidding and vice versa. And you have to ask yourself, or kind of wonder, why is a lot of our congressional members dual citizens?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Why is that? Why that shouldn't be at all.
No.
It shouldn't be at all. You have the seat, you get elected, you're in the US, you represent the US, you live in the US. Not this dual stuff, because isn't that how a lot of them are wheeling and dealing and making, these crooked deals and lining their pockets, and they buy different things? I mean, that's ridiculous.
Right. And and I think the big portion of this, with the insider trading, with what certain members of Congress and within our government was doing, was I personally believe that Dick Cheney and George Bush gave President Trump the biggest gift he could ever ask for, and that was the FISA courts. Because you have, I've never personally appeared in front of a FISA judge, but I have worked on documentation to go support whoever was going, whether it was a military prosecutor, in that realm, or if it was a federal prosecutor through the AG's office, to present data and facts as the government believed of why we should be basically eavesdropping in on U.S. citizens. And the greatest gift that I think Bush and Cheney ever gave us was the what they call him, not special counsel within the FBI. He worked in the FBI's counsel office. I believe he was like a Korean national, Hong. He's the one that drafted it.
Wow.
And these FISA courts are still, they're still around. They're held in secret. No one knows where they're at. They rotate all the time just because of the information that, is above top secret with caveats and everything else. But I think they've been using that to get rid of some of these bad actors within our government.
Which they've been doing. There's been a lot going on with that. People, there's been arrests continuing going on, different arrests. It's not the big people like the Clintons or the Bushes and what we want to see, or the Obama, but I mean, it's got to start somewhere. And a lot of these judges and stuff, it's insane what they've been trying to pull.
Well, there's been a lot of federal judges that have been arrested and removed from the bench. And I can't remember, and I'm not somebody who follows SCOTUS all the time, but I can't remember a time where the Supreme Court has come out with an opinion and within days reversed themselves.
What is that?
So,
and why is that happening?
Right. And so did they have a constitutional clarity all of a sudden that, oh, wait, we ruled on that wrong? Because I think just within this Trump administration, they reversed themselves 3 times.
It's unbelievable.
Right. So, and we will probably never know everything that's going on.
Yeah.
But, like that picture I sent you and Mike of Bibi being interviewed on Fox News. What the hell was up with his neck?
That was ridiculous. Now, you guys, if you did not see that interview, you have to go back and find it on Fox News. It was recent with Bibi, and Jeff sent us the picture, and it's not just like sagging neck like we get when we get older. Like there was right across here, there were ridges and bumps. It almost looked like he had a beaded necklace under the skin, like a big beaded necklace under there, and it was all the way across, and it looked ridiculous. It was not like changed or
Yeah, it was 10 times worse than the Joe Biden scratching his neck, and it looked like his
Remember?
skin tore. Right.
Remember, that was just a few wrinkles. This was really graphic and huge and very noticeable and not doctored with. Real quick, I want to let you know, Jeff, Conservative Cowboy said, Jeff, you think the same thing I think. General Flynn about to be named head of NSA, National Security Advisor. Now, when there's a process like that, is that a position Trump can just name whoever
Yes.
he wants for that? Nobody needs to agree, vote, go through. He doesn't have to sit through Congress and get grilled
Correct.
and all that, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, Trump can just appoint him as part of presidential staff, part of the National Security Council. And remember, Flynn was DNI under Obama. So he knows where all the bodies are buried.
Yeah. Let's connect the dots that we got to remember to connect, Jeff B. That's true, because we forget as years move on and as time goes on, you got to kind of keep those dots connected and realize, yeah, he does. Absolutely right. Some of these, even Cash, look at Cash.
Right.
He knows a lot too.
Well, Cash was, over at CIA. And then he moved over to the National Security Policy section, which, basically pulls off operations like they just pulled off. There's so many things that are at work, and you just, I truly believe within the next 9 months, and not putting any dates or anything, but you can start seeing stuff ramping up. And, there's more and more information that's being slowly dripped out. And a lot of people, you just look at this No King's Day. I think the American people have had enough of this bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the American people, they want to work, they want to do whatever, and just be able to go home and not have to deal with this nonsense anymore.
Yeah, and just live life and work and make a decent living and enjoy life. Yeah.
Well, now there's that article out in the Gateway Pundit where they have linked all this funding for these protests to Soros.
Oh yeah, yes, that is.
And now
yep.
they're going to call him in front of Congress.
Well,
Damn well he's not going to show up.
Well, because he's dead. Did you
Well,
see what I sent you? Because they're
Yeah.
saying he is dead. Where is he? Because his son just got married to that Huma lady that was with Hillary, right? Wasn't she the one that was Hillary? That was.
Yeah, Uma Abedin.
There you go. Thank you for that. I couldn't remember the name. Thank you. But he just got married to her. And Soros, there was no pictures and appearance of Soros other than one where he was sitting, George Soros was sitting down. His son was sitting like up on the arm of the chair next to him. And his hand looked deformed. It was big and swollen. And somebody said that doesn't even look like what he looks like recently because he was a lot bigger. His face was firmer. It was like a doctored picture is what
Right.
I'm saying that was released to the media. But there's been no other information about Soros at all. And he's 94, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely pushing some earth somewhere. But I mean, there's just so many people that have been in our face over the last 8 years that have just disappeared. I mean,
True.
they're gone, and I think a lot of people have tuned a lot of stuff out because, especially in this type of community, because they had such high expectations of stuff. Even myself, I thought a lot of this would have been wrapped up by now, but you know, even buddies of mine at Treasury and at the FBI, the guys who weren't necessarily read in on certain programs, even now they're saying, look, this is beyond ridiculous. It really, really is. And everybody knows in those communities, in the intelligence community, and whether you're working, ET at the FBI or you're working national security section, they all know something is going to break. They know it. They know there is, it's almost like an unsettling feeling. It's not like, during the Biden administration where everybody knew there was something wrong.
Yeah.
Everybody. It didn't matter whether you were Republican or Democrat. You knew there was something batshit crazy going on.
Yeah.
And now, you look at Trump, and yeah, Trump has an ego. I get that. There's a lot of times I wish he would just dial it in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But
I agree.
The guy's too competent. I mean, he's way too competent in what he's saying and what he's doing. And some of these posts that he's been putting out, 8 years ago, if you'd have told me he would be doing this today, I'd even said you were crazy. We're waiting on a spaceship to land at Mike Pence. I mean, that's how weird all this has gotten. But Trump hasn't said anything, quote unquote, outlandish that hasn't really come true when you think about it.
That's what people need to remember. When he says it, he means it, and when he means it, he says it. He's not backpedaled on anything. Now, has he not been able to accomplish everything he's wanted to so far? Yes, but it wasn't from lack of effort and action on his part. It's from Congress and everybody else trying to blockade it or stall it or playing the games that they're used to being playing. Trump is on it like flies on doo-doo. Trump has just worked his tail off for this country, and he always has. And to bring up real quick here, Kathy H. was saying Gabbard was not in the Situation Room, and all that was going on with Tulsi Gabbard, that she said they didn't have nukes. Now, people were on her for that because a lot of people were saying, "Hey, Trump, what are you doing? She said there were no nukes." However, they took it out of context, and she did post and come out and say, "That is not what I said." She said that they probably did have nukes, but so if she wasn't in there, is it because Trump doesn't trust her, or he's got to check it out? Because we talked at one time, a lot of his people, our advisors, aren't filling him in the way they need to fill him in, Jeff. We were saying that they're kind of filtering the information to the president, and that's not what they're supposed to do.
Well, and two, a lot of people have to realize, too, even though you're on the president's cabinet, even though you may be part of the National Security Council, just because you have the clearance, you definitely may not have the need to know. So there were times, I mean, I was the aide to Admiral Blair. So there was a lot of meetings that we were in, whether it was, at NSA, if it was at the White House, at the FBI. There was a lot of times, more than not, that I was asked to leave the room.
Wow.
And I had a top secret SCI, TK, whiskey clearance, and there was so many levels above that you're asked to leave the room because you're not cleared for the data that's going to be presented. And I think that's the case.
Okay.
And that's just like with the big chair. His clearance levels all the way up there, just because of what he deals with. And there's a lot of times since he's taken this position where he's told me, I was asked to leave the room.
Wow.
And so, I mean, and a lot of it comes down to plausible deniability, to where if something goes sideways and you're called in front of a congressional committee, you can't testify to something that you don't know about.
True. That's another good point.
And
See, you bring the perspective that I don't think a lot of people think about, know about, and that's what it's really important, because then they gain understanding, instead of
Right.
making assumptions, you realize, okay, this is what Jeff's telling you, this is how it works, and this is why that happened, instead of making naive assumptions. And that's what I love about this, you being able to give us the inside details of how it works and what goes on without getting yourself into too much trouble.
Right. Well, I mean, you just look at the Ronald Reagan, Ollie North, Iran Contra. There was a lot of things that came out in Congress that, Ollie North told Congress, look, we didn't tell the president. We have an understanding, but we didn't tell the president because we wanted to give the president plausible deniability. Where, if you're brought up on impeachment charges for Iran Contra, well, the president could sit there under oath and say, no, I knew nothing about it.
Wow.
Because
So
he
there's a
wasn't- he
method
wasn't-
to the
right.
madness. Okay.
Because you were never briefed on it. That's just like, people talk about the black budget and some of the projects and stuff that goes on. Yeah, the president, the commander-in-chief knows that these programs are going, but they don't know the details. So,
Okay,
I mean, it's not like that, the president, okay, give me everything we got. Well,
Yeah.
a lot of that, it has to go through the White House counsel, because a lot of those attorneys are national security attorneys, which is a whole different gambit of laws.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
that's why Young, when they did the FISA, that was the Department of Justice did that, and with renditioning and waterboarding and all of that. That was done to protect the office of the presidency.
Wow. That's incredible. Well, it makes sense now that you explain it. That makes total logical sense. Also, let's talk real quick about the flags, because we know President Trump put those flags in at the White House. He paid for them himself. He was very proud because they put them in sand, because he said sand doesn't rot the poles, and then it allows them to move and all that. So he was giving details. He was out there. Diane said that she thinks he raised the flags in front of the White House. That was a signal we're taking back our country. Conservative Cowboy said that Trump put on a yellow tie, which he did, and he said that was a signal that 11.3 occupation's over, and EO 13848 is activated, which I don't know which one that is.
Yeah, 13848 is where it authorizes Treasury to do asset forfeiture for attempted coup of the U.S. government for the 2020.
Okay.
All of that. And and what a lot of people have to remember too, and this is why I think Congress has been so quiet. And I told you and Mike about the executive order that Trump wrote is within hours of him coming into office his second term, was authorizing him within 90 days to invoke the Insurrection Act. And I think, me personally, this is just my personal thoughts. I think he's done that because you put in pieces like the Supreme Court, okay? Mm-hmm. The 3 reversals. Nobody basically can step into the Supreme Court and say, okay, you're reversing your decision based on this constitutional article, right? So the only body that I believe that could do that would be the Judge Advocate General Court, if there is a insurrection, and I think since the election of 2020, we have been in somewhat of a continuity of government. There's been a shadow government being ran. And, a lot of people said, well, Obama was running the White House during those 4 years.
Yeah.
Very, very possible,
Yeah.
but I still say that wasn't Joe Biden. There's enough video data to give a conspiracy theorist, information or an hypothesis that something else was going on.
Yeah. And
And-
those around him, his wife and his son and all that, were part of it, so that makes it
Right.
even easier to yes,
Right.
get away
And,
with.
and I told you guys when, Shane was helping Mike, the way I see this playing out is there's going to be some type of constitutional crisis. And I still think there's going to be.
I agree with
because-
you more and more so now, yes.
And I think we're probably, the way I look at things, it's the constitutional crisis is probably going to happen before the midterm elections. That's going to require the Supreme Court to make some sort of ruling under the guise of national security that everybody in Congress has to go up for re-election.
I would love that because it's getting close, and with the 2020 stuff getting exposed more. Remember, we were conspiracy theorists for so many
Right.
things, and now that's all coming out. There's a reason for the timing of all that. Lindell went in court as well, Mike Lindell, Mr. Pillow. So I mean,
Right.
there's a lot, and you know who's been quiet was Sidney Powell.
Yeah, right. She disappeared.
What
She's
happened?
gone. Yeah, she's a ghost. Look, Mike Lindell was a ghost forever. Mike Flynn was a ghost forever. Lynn Wood, no one has heard from that guy.
Lynn Wood went and he's got a bed and breakfast on his Carolina place now, it seems like, and you don't hear anything about him. I think he's still on Telegram. I don't have Telegram anymore, but remember, he kept posting pictures of the dog with the tail pointing
Right.
to different people, saying when the
Right.
dog points at you, you're out, you're done.
And here's my thing with that too. When you look at some of the outlandish stuff Trump has said about world leaders and our politicians, why isn't he getting hit with defamation suits? I mean, if this stuff is so outlandish, why aren't they hitting him with lawsuits?
Yeah, Pelosi and Schiff and all them would be more than happy to do that.
Right.
They couldn't wait to do that.
Right. So, I mean, why? To me, that's just another anomaly.
Yes.
That to me shows that there's something else happening.
Yes.
And and I still believe that just by going through and reading these executive orders, which a lot of time they're boring as hell, but there's a lot of insight into them on what the thought process is of White House legal counsel and the president. And
Yeah.
and if you like during Biden's administration, there was a lot of executive orders that implicated, if what Trump said was true, that implicated Biden and a lot of Democrats and Republicans. Why didn't he squash those? But they were
Yeah.
kept on the books.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
That
to me,
doesn't make sense at all.
No.
And Diane put in there, and I remember watching this, that the Biden inauguration, she said, was his funeral. They shut off 3 cannons. I watched that. And
Yeah.
didn't he swear in like a minute or two before he was supposed to, before
Right.
noon or something? That
Right.
was another anomaly, right?
Well,
So,
right. And people called that subjective. Well, yeah, you're right. It is subjective. But there were reports, if you remember when you guys were doing those shows, that people overseas had seen the inauguration before it happened.
yeah, what was that? Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Right. So, I mean, it's just all these weird things that have transpired and are still going on that make no sense.
Right. And don't forget, now I brought this up on air, and I brought this up to every military person that I ran across. When Biden he really wasn't saluting the people by, Air Force One, or, when he aboard the chopper and stuff. But do you remember how sloppy those uniforms were?
Right.
And they were oversized and not fitted and not shiny. And I'm like, I was saying, and like I said, the military men, and I'm like, doesn't make sense to me. And they just
Right.
would look at me. They're like, no, can't figure that out. Because
Well, well, how about the time that Biden and the military turned their back on him?
oh, yeah.
I mean,
What the-
when the
the-
when the command master chief of the Navy would come to Pearl Harbor, and there would be a big ceremony. In that circumstance, for the Navy, anyways, that you're selected to go to these events, and
Okay.
normally it's your guys that are always squared away, don't look like shit bags, because there are those in the military. And even before you get to go, you go through numerous uniform inspections. So
Right.
they want to So they want to make sure everybody's checking it, because you don't want to be the idiot standing in line that gets pointed out for
Right.
something that's wrong.
Very good
So,
point. Yes.
To me, I don't know. In the military, they don't, from my perspective, they don't care if the president is a Democrat or Republican. That's your commander in chief.
Yes. Right.
And you give that person the respect of that office, no matter what you think about him. And it's a big deal. When Bill Clinton came to Pearl Harbor, and our group went there, it was a big deal.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
And at the end of it, a lot of us received awards, because they give you a muck or a puck, presidential unit citation, just for being there. And
Wow.
it helps you out when you go for advancement and you go in front of the board. They look at all these citations that you've gotten, and it's a big deal. It helps you out. So it's a dog-eat-dog world when it comes to that, and they don't care who the president is. It's their
Right.
commander-in-chief.
That makes total sense. Rhonda put out here Central Casting. Now that's another anomaly. Jeff B. He says that all the time. Remember, he said Biden's shot. He doesn't know where he's at, and that's Central Casting. Well, I have to tell you something. A friend of mine told me about Central Casting, and I signed up for Central Casting. Now, I haven't partook in it, because
Right.
when you go and you do this, it's like 12, 14-hour days, 2 days in a row. You don't get paid a lot. I was going to do it with my friend, and she couldn't do it. But I signed up for Central Casting, so I'm a part of it. So the point is, it's real. It is real.
Well, you go back, look at Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon was in the movie production business.
Oh, how did I not know that? I don't remember.
Go look at his bio. And when Trump first came into office in his first term, and I kept telling people, why the heck did Trump put that guy in his Treasury Secretary when all he was a film producer? So it's just anomalies like that just it doesn't make any sense.
And you can look up some of these Congress people, and they're in Central Casting too. That is not, unless it's just like a fake thing, that the government made up, but they're there. So my point is, if you go and look them up, it's real. They're there. You can look them up, and they're there. Whether it's fake or not, it's there. And Mike, Mike isn't coming on Conservative Cowboy. He's busy doing some other things, so he's not able to. He said he might later, but I doubt it, because it's really late. Basically, it's just crazy to me that we have a government, and now everybody, but look at Zelensky. That's what I wanted to bring up. Zelensky was like dancing in tights. He's a dancer, an actor, a performer.
Well, and the United States pretty much put him into power when we overthrew Yanukovych.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. I mean, look at the history of Ukraine when Yanukovych was the president there. And we basically helped topple that government, and we installed Zelensky.
What were we
And
thinking? Or were
look,
we thinking?
right, and look what the and look at the Russian-Ukrainian situation,
Okay.
and how I said from the very get-go, why in the hell didn't Vladimir Putin drop their power grid, cut off their internet? Okay, now
Yeah.
look at that situation, and look what happened 2 days ago inside Iran. Their internet got dropped. Their banking systems
Yes.
didn't work. The power grids were dropping because there was Amar Safiri kept putting out, okay, it's coming because the power grid just got dropped. No one can get any, cash out of the banks. So that right there tells me, okay, what was actually going on in Ukraine? Not saying that people weren't dying or that Russia didn't invade.
Right.
Why wasn't Putin smart enough to do simple items that some schmuck like me could say, okay, if
Let's
look at the Gulf War, the first Gulf War, that's the first thing that Bush did. He sent in special forces to get rid of their power grid.
which makes sense.
Right, because now you don't have radar systems, and if you do, they're running off generators, and those are only going to run for so long, but it definitely hinders what their military and defense systems are going to be able to do.
That's such a good point. Dang. Well, remember too, was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago that there were live cameras and video footage at the Vatican, and everything
Right.
went dark for a while at the Vatican, and then we saw little explosions.
Right. Well, remember, I think Mike and Shane was doing a show, and I text Mike saying, hey, somebody from Rhoda sent me a text saying, hey, have you been to, what church do you go to? Is it Catholic? And that's all they told me. And I told Mike, I said, hey, I got this cryptic message from a friend of mine over in Rhoda. And, why is he asking me if I go to a Catholic church? The only thing I can think of is either Notre Dame or, the Vatican. And then all the lights went out. And I was like, what the hell?
I remember watching
Right.
that. He tells you that, and then that happens. And
Right.
we never really found out what that was.
Right. Right. And, and I find it amazing now, going to the 2020, that all of a sudden, because I had asked two guys that I know that are still in D.C. that are working at the Eye, what's this secret room that Kash Patel and Bongino are talking about with these fake ballots and fake IDs?
Yeah. Did you see the
Boxes.
picture? The
Yeah.
picture, massive.
So, one, where did they come from? Two, how did they get there? And three, who in the hell had the keys to this room?
To get them in there. Yeah.
Right.
So
Right.
that's the thing. You have to go beneath the surface, not just say, "Oh, look, see, we were right. We told you that there were fake ballots and there was all this crooked
Wow.
and corrupt stuff going on." We have to go deeper and ask the questions you just asked and research that, because it makes no sense.
Well, because remember, I had said during that election that there were pallets of ballots,
Yes, you did.
and everybody said, "You're fucking crazy." And now,
They
and
did.
now they're showing them that
Yeah.
they had them. So
100.
yeah, this is such a tangled web that you would almost have to have one of those walls where you're connecting string, and then you wouldn't
put
be
it
able to read it, right? Because there's just so much connecting dots.
Yes, 100%. Well, I'm going to read this thing real quick that Trump just put out, Jeff. He said, any retaliation by Iran against the United States of America will be met with force far greater than what was witnessed tonight. Thank you, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States. He put that out 5 minutes ago on his social media page.
Yeah, and I think this is referring to the national security letter that's being circulated with all the agencies, that somebody shot me a quick copy of the unclassified version. They're looking for the Quds Force, cutting off the Straits of Hormuz. Don't be surprised within the next 24 to 48 hours, gas shoots up $1 a gallon.
And then everybody's going to say, see, Trump said he was
Yep.
going to lower gas. They're going to blame
Correct.
Trump, and
Sure.
that's
Well,
that's it.
no matter what he did or what he didn't do, he was going to be damned if he did and damned if he didn't. Now, on the flip side of that, if he would have waited the 2 weeks and let's say come Monday, Iran decides to launch a Shahed missile and it was nuclear tipped and it wiped out, Haifa, the port of Haifa, or Sharm el Sheikh, one of those, then what? Now, you should have done what you promised you were going to, because there was even people within this community who were Trump backers that were saying, damn, dude, are you not going to do something, or are you just going to wuss out?
Right,
And-
right.
And, when they were moving all this equipment and the B-2 bombers and that, I told my one buddy, I said, this, first off, not everybody, but military-wise, everybody pretty much knows that Diego Garcia is a very big staging ground for anything that happens in the Middle East, because it's in the Indian Ocean. It's normally, to any of those hot spots, is maybe a 9-hour flight. So why in the hell would you scramble stuff out of Whiteman Air Force Base, fly it all the way to Honolulu, then to Guam, then to Diego, then go up into the Middle East? So I think that was something that probably the Joint Chiefs of Staff and SecDef said, hey, let's put this out here, because, the government has an unlimited pocketbook.
Yeah,
They just do whatever. So, it was a good ruse, because it had a lot of Trump supporters saying, oh, here we go, 2 or 3 days, and it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. And, now it's a Saturday, there's no markets open, so, that has a big impact as well on decision making.
Yeah, true. I'm just, this has just been out of nowhere too. If you think about it, I can't really put my finger on what happened to fire up Israel and Iran. I know that Iran was fighting at Israel ballistic missiles a while ago, and Israel just turned the other cheek, basically. But
Right.
What really started this, like, out of nowhere? Did they just have enough? Like, I kind of missed the ball on how this all just blew up.
Yeah. It was probably a lot of intelligence gathering, through the CIA, through NSA, DIA, that, they were probably moving launchers, or like there's a lot of stuff that happens in the Persian Gulf Navy-wise that never gets reported, with ship engagements. When ships go through the Straits of Hormuz, they're always getting trained on by Silkworm missiles. So even like hypothetically, let's say, because I'd heard this story 2 days ago that there were 3 UK flagged vessels that were in the Persian Gulf that some of the militants of Iran were trying to hijack. And Keir Starmer basically asked the White House, hey, we got assets in there, but because of, think about the UK, they have a large Muslim population because they let their doors open.
Oh,
Will you take care of this for us? And the thing that amazes me is how quiet bin Salman is, because he really hasn't been speaking. So that tells me that he is aiding or helping us with intelligence or staging, but he has to keep it quiet because he has a sect within his country that are devout radical fundamentalists. Ooh, and so, it's there's, once you start scratching the surface, you see all these little things that could trigger different
Yeah.
stuff. You know,
Well,
like I just got an email from Monkey, you
uh-huh.
know, saying, "Hey, stay frosty, brother. It's about he's seeing movement." So the military is moving stuff around. So you
Yeah.
know, the threat matrix is going to be high. Um, so I don't know. We'll have to see in the next 24 to 72 how this shakes out.
Well, when you talk about triggering, I knew that when the Ayatollah came out and said, we don't fear threats from the United States, that we are
Right.
strong, we do what we want. I knew that was going to trigger Trump. Now, I didn't have any idea what he was going to do. But on that note, Sherry Myers in chat said Iranian TV is saying that all Americans in the region are now a target. Well,
Right.
that's gonna fry Trump's keister again, because
Right.
he just came out and I read that statement of what he said: don't threaten and don't go
Right.
after our people. So they're almost triggering us to go. And you know, and I'm actually shocked, and I said this the other night, but it makes sense now. When I said I didn't think Iran had enough to go against Israel, I didn't think they had that much. But then I forgot how Biden gave them the billions before he left office, and how we've been supplying them with weaponry and money all along. And it makes
Right.
total sense
Well,
that they have a lot of stuff.
well, you know, you just have to go back, and they made a movie about it. Remember the movie with oh uh, oh shit, his name will come to me, but it was called Lord of War.
Okay.
It was a movie based on Viktor Orban, who was a Russian arms dealer. Keanu Reeves played it.
Can't
Yeah,
Nicolas Cage, Jared
Nicholas
Leto,
Cage. Yes, I was
yep,
thinking Keanu Reeves. But
Ethan Hawke,
Victor,
yep.
yeah, I mean he was supplying all this stuff, and then you have to go back to the Uranium One deal with Hillary
Oh,
Clinton,
geez, I remember that now that you
right?
mention it. Oh,
And
yeah.
Obama sending the Iranians pallets of cash, and they said, "Oh, well, that was their money." Oh, okay, yeah,
I
okay,
remember that.
right.
Oh,
So
my
I mean,
God.
you have to almost, because I've always thought from when all of this stuff first started kicking off, what, 8, 9 years ago, when Trump made that very ominous statement when he was surrounded by all the military and their wives. And he said, "There's a storm coming." And the press said, "What storm, Mr. President?" And he said, "You'll find out soon enough."
I
So,
love that.
yeah,
It gave me
and
chills.
right. And so there, I mean, there's, whether you believe certain things, don't believe certain things, you have to look at everything with an open mind.
Yes,
Anything within the military is possible.
because
Anything.
we don't know. We don't know.
Correct.
We're not
Exactly.
supposed to know. Yeah,
Right.
we're
And you
supposed to
know,
be confused.
and I've told Mike, and I know Mike still has a hard time with it, that when you're looking at something that they're showing you on TV, don't look at what they want you to look at. Look at the surroundings. Because the night that Biden canceled the Las Vegas fundraiser because he got COVID the second time, right? And
Mm-hmm.
he flew back to D.C. And there was an individual right behind Joe Biden that I knew. And I sent Mike a picture. I said, "Here, look at this." Now, I know for a fact that he's with Trump because I just got off the phone with him. And 6 hours later, he's walking Trump out at the RNC. Now,
That's
when my mother seen, she goes, "Hey, when the hell did he get a twin brother?" And I was like, "Oh, you caught that, huh?" She goes, "Yeah, it's not hard to see it." And I texted him. I said, "Hey, where'd you get this twin brother from? Because you can't be two places at once." And then a couple days later, you know, he texted me and said, "Hey, one of those didn't happen when they said it did." So it's just weird stuff like that. Why would you fake something when you don't have to?
confusion to
right.
derail. I don't
Or
know.
or is that something that they are going to show people again later on? Because you
Ver-
can go look at Google or not Google, YouTube, and type in, Joe Biden cancels a fundraiser in Vegas because he gets the coof the second time. Look at the timestamp, the date. Look at the person directly behind Biden, and then go to the RNC where Trump accepted the nomination and say, wait, look at the timestamp, look at the date, and say, how the hell did this happen? Because you
It's
can't be at two
crazy.
places at once.
No, no. And CGI and everything is so good. That's another aspect. There
Right.
was video. And dang it, I forget what it was. But Trump was walking onto Air Force One. I think it was the first time he was boarding Air Force One after he got reelected, and Melania was with them. And
Right.
I watched that live. He was
Right.
walking up the steps with her, and something told me you should take pictures of this because this is an important moment. And I'm like, no, it'll be on video. Do you know, I swear to you, Jeff, on the replay, it showed him walking up there with Melania once it was done being live, and then freaking Barron Trump was behind him, walking with him. As soon as they turned onto Air Force One to the left, Barron
Right.
kind of came around Trump, and there was weird hands and arms that shouldn't have been there. And then a little kid ran across, and I'm like, wait a minute, Barron wasn't even there with the live.
Right.
If he was, it was later. He didn't walk up those stairs with them. I was watching it with my own eyes. And I remember showing some of that stuff to Mike and sending it to him. And I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And he goes, where's the other video? I said, it's not there. The live didn't have Barron. And the recording or the afterplay has Barron. He wasn't there. And it was like, that was the first time I ever really noticed something on my own
Right.
like that, and it freaked me out. I'm like, what is the purpose of this?
Well, that's just like when, during the first Trump administration, when Trump went and met with Putin and he invited him to the G8, and everybody was just shocked and floored. And Putin gave him that soccer ball with the different color, the orange and white. And then the very next day, Melania Trump gets off Air Force One with a dress similar to that pattern. Now, in my community, working in intelligence, they call that a tell. They're trying to tell somebody something without saying it.
Just
But-
like, yeah. Just like her supposedly vendetta outfit that she wore with the
Right.
that black and white hat down
Right.
over her eyes. Yeah.
And then, the big thing when Trump come out and just, a few weeks ago, and Melania Trump cut in front of him. That doesn't happen, and that letter in the book, it says, when the queen checkmates the king on this no King's Day. I mean, it all.
That was weird. That was an
Right.
awkward moment. I watched that too, and I'm like, is this an awkward moment where Melania didn't know where to stand before the flag
Correct.
was brought to Trump or what? But no, Trump, because they were talked a little bit, and Trump's like, yeah, come here. And she did. She just stood right in front of him, and he was right there. And that is the exact position. And then all that came out, Jeff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it wasn't an awkward moment because they never have those. Trump doesn't have those.
No.
That is not normal for him, especially her. She is usually very gracious and waits for direction. And it was like almost like, and then I'm like, oh my gosh. And that came out, and I'm like, the king can't move without the queen or something like that
Yeah.
in chess. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We've been
Right.
talking about 5D chess for years, and people laugh at us.
Well, like I said, I think from when Kennedy was assassinated, that there was some movement within certain agencies and certain working cell groups, is what they call them, that have been working to, do certain things. And to me, all this stuff is coming to light just by, if you don't have to read anything, you just have to look at what they're not expecting you to look at.
Yeah. Well, Rhonda, yes, that's true. Melania did wear the same pattern as the wedding pattern at Soros and Huma's wedding. I forgot
Right.
about that aspect, so thanks for reminding us about that. And the other thing is with Barron Trump, too, because he's really, people are saying he's the secret weapon because, you know, he obviously, they said, helped Trump win the election because he brought in the younger group. He told his dad, you need to do this and this and this. And whatever it was he said to Biden, remember, at the...
Yeah.
Yeah, and Biden was smiling and all of a sudden he went like that. And apparently a lip reader that I saw, I don't know if this is true or not, but when he went back to Melania, she said, be nice.
Right.
So he obviously said something that wasn't very nice, but the reality is, if you're him and that man's in a room, even if it's not really him, whoever is there,
Right.
you're going to say something. How can you not? They've been trying to take out his dad and everything they put the family through. How do you restrain yourself completely? He's a kid, you know, a young
Right.
adult. So,
Yeah, I think this coming week is going to be very interesting. I just hope that we don't get drug into some other bigger conflict
yes.
that, you know, the country really doesn't need. You know, whether you're Republican or Democrat, independent, you know,
Yes.
the country still needs a lot of healing
Yes.
from
I
a lot of stuff. I mean, just not politics. And hopefully, you know, Congress will tamper it down. All these talking heads, these religious leaders will just, because right now, and I told you and Mike once all this started, my biggest fear is not Iran. My biggest fear is sleeper cells.
Yes, I agree
And-
with you.
And because, look, you don't have to take out a city block or a whole city. All you have to do is put fear and panic that there's a possibility of a dirty bomb going off. And, you know, the American people will clam up.
Yes. Yes, and that is my biggest fear too as well. And you know, we're just going to have to stay in prayer and stay diligent and
Right.
see what the response is when it comes into what Iran's going to do and stuff. But I think that's a good note to leave it at,
Yeah.
Jeff B. I
Alrighty.
really appreciate you joining me and all the information you provide, really. And I'm sure that the listeners and viewers do as well. And we'll just have to stay on top of this. If there's anything else that breaks and I'm able to do it, I'll come on. If not, LW will. And we just appreciate you so very much. And I just, even though there's all this going on, I still feel confident. I feel hopeful and optimistic. And speaking of, before we get out of here, about people changing their minds, Putin was said that he was for Iran, and he switched up too. He
Right.
changed his mind and backpedaled on that. So what is with that? We need to investigate. Why are these people
Yeah.
just all of a sudden? What happens that they change their mind? It's not like they didn't know ahead of time before they spoke on some of these things. So
Well,
I
and
don't know.
I think a lot of this goes back to, you know, Ronald Reagan's adage, you know, peace through strength.
Yes.
And, you know, because if the president of the United States, the commander in chief, allows the military to do what it knows how to do, we can wreak a lot of havoc.
Yes.
And there's stuff out there that, you know, when I was in and when I was working within these agencies, stuff that I was introduced to that was mind blowing. And
Wow.
that's been 20 some years ago. And the technology now is just above and beyond anything that we ever worked with.
Wow.
So-
Wow. Yeah.
Alrighty, Tammy.
All right, well,
you have a
thank you.
good evening.
Okay, you too,
All right,
and everybody. See you later, Jeff.
Yep, thanks.
Everybody, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you didn't already, like and share the channel. We sure do appreciate it. We will talk to you guys soon. Know that in the background, LW, Jeff B, and I do stay in touch, trying to keep up on everything, and we get on here when we can to be able to bring the information to you guys. In the meantime, have a blessed rest of your Saturday evening. Not much left, and we'll see what the next week brings. Take care. God bless. I'll talk to you guys soon.